Sup, nerds? I'm Aaron.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Wes.
We're talking about Viticulture by Stonemaier Games.
That pause. Viticulture is Jamie Stegmaier's first game. It's a worker placement game, and without getting into spoiler territory on what I think about it, it's his best game.
I would kind of agree that this is a really well-polished game. Like, this is probably, like you said, one of his best because it's just so tight. The game is just, the points at the end are always so close. Everybody... Well,
almost
always
so close.
Between people.
That first game we played, though, it was really tight,
close.
too.
It was a 1 point. Yeah, it was like, I beat you by 1 point. I beat you by 1. No. Oh, spoilers.
Spoilers.
And I think he did a really good job of taking a genre, wine, country, and putting it into a worker placement like nobody, would think of doing. Like, it works so well with having the 2 seasons of putting workers out either now or you can pass at the first season and go to the next season, so you can actually pick your grapes and harvest your fields and get more workers and prepare for the next year and then just having the grapes and the wine age every year so that they become more valuable. That's just a really cool mechanism.
The theme and mechanics do meld together really well, and I will admit that the theme, while it's unique, was one thing that was keeping me away from playing this game for a little while.
Yeah, this game and Vinos, both of them, I've heard great things about them. I have zero interest in playing them because it's all about making wine, and I think wine is fine. I could definitely go for a nice cap, but I don't want to play games about it.
I don't much care for wine. If this was
game
about...
is changing the oil on your car.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good point. While we may be snobby with I don't want to play that, but at what point do we go from this theme is unique to this theme is just unnecessary? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or for us, really just not our cup of tea.
And we're just kind of looking at it wrong because after finding out that it was a worker placement, that kind of piqued my interest even more. I was like, I have to play this game. I was like, I don't want to buy it first. I want to play it first. So, last year when I actually finally got to play it, I was like, okay, now the first chance I finally, whenever I can buy this game, I'm getting it because it was excellent. I need to show these guys. You guys need to play this. We love worker placements, and I think this is probably one of the best.
But in true, Stonemaier or Stegmayer fashion, it's a very tight game. So it feels, as I'm playing, like a Stonemaier game. And, not saying that that's good or bad, but I'm saying if you don't like his other games, this one, it's not different enough in that type of feel. You know what I mean? If you were like, well, I was always starved for money in Charterstone, or if Scythe is really, really, if you're off by one resource, you might screw yourself. And here it's the same kind of thing, 1 point or one, amount of money or anything, that matters.
Yeah, when you're going to score a wine, I've had so many times in games where I'm like, I'm gonna score. Oh no, I didn't harvest this wine, or I used this wine for that, and I should have let it age and use it for this. No, and then you're like,
or even money. Money is a super tight resource.
Oh yeah.
There were times when I'm the build a structure, so you'll do it for a 1 money discount, and I'm like, that 1 money, that's not that big a deal. But it is. It's a huge deal. Getting something 1 cheaper is a big deal. And it's almost one of those things where you have to know that ahead of time. You have to know that going in. Listen, money is kind of difficult to come by, and it's really important. Every 1 money is a big deal. So don't just, if you can do something at a discount, do it at a discount. Don't pay full price and be like, it wasn't that big a deal.
It is interesting to me, this game, with the bonuses that you can get if you're the first one to go to a location. There are so many times where, if I don't get this bonus, this whole year is shot for me in this game. Everything I'm going to do is counting on me giving a tour and getting the bonus coin so that when we get to winter I can do this. And then there were some rounds where I went there, I don't have 2 green cards, but I'm going to go to the place where I can play 2 green cards just so that they can't. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting that I don't need it, but I'm going to take it from them, or if I don't get it, so I'm going to give up a starting benefit to go first just because I have to get this for my whole round to work. So that was a really interesting dynamic in the game.
When you're choosing when you go for at the beginning of the round, choosing when to place your your chicken on the little
Turn order.
turn order track. Thank you.
It's really like the wake up track.
Yeah, it's like, who's gonna wake up earlier and start doing work? You know, if you wake up late, you get an extra guy. I guess he's the guy that comes and wakes you up and he gets to help you. Like,
You know how like you're sleeping and you're like, well, if I snooze long enough, I will multiply.
there are like points, especially on a larger player count, where you know where you choose to go definitely has a very big impact on what you're going to get out of that round. Sometimes it may be worth, you know, like you said, choosing the one spot so that you can definitely go first. Or, you know, maybe you're like, okay, I'll go second. I'll take the 2 spot. Maybe somebody will go ahead of me, but at least I get a green card out of it. Like you want to feel like you get something. I mean, the later you go, the more beneficial it seems. Like you're like, oh wow, I get an extra worker this round. I get a
Extra victory point. Yeah.
I've still have yet to see somebody take the absolute first spot and not get any reward. Well, mainly because like once I take number 2, right? If I take number 2, you're really like, it's kind of 6.5 dozen one and the other. Like if I go ahead of him, I can come to this spot and get this bonus. But if I go after him, I'll get a bonus anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it kind of depends if you need something very specifically. Like if you really need green cards and he went to number 2 to take the green card, and you're like, okay, well, I have. But even then, a lot of times you can adjust your strategy and work something else out.
And that's why I said it gets even more amplified with a larger player count. If you took second, he took third, somebody else took fourth, I'm like, okay, do I want to go fifth after 3 people? Or go first and take no bonus?
I think one of the things that kind of sets Viticulture apart from other worker placement games is I don't want to say it has like an engine building, but you have to upgrade your personal farm as you go. And it's not like there's like different directions and different paths you can go down. You kind of want to upgrade almost everything. And there's a couple little side things you could do, like the tasting room to get extra points when you give tours, or the windmill to give you points when you plant vines. But that's only good if you get that like really early in the game or you start with it. But like, okay, I need to upgrade my cellars so I can have better wine. I need to upgrade my irrigation so I can plant this kind of vine to get this kind of grape. And so there's so many different like things to keep track of, and things like with that money being a precious resource, it's not just hard to get, but there's so many things that you want to spend it on. It's like scrolling through the new releases on cool stuff. And you're like, I got $50. What am I going to spend it on?
Am I going to spend it on food or board games?
That's not a question.
I agree with you that I really do like that aspect of it, the upgrading. And probably the things that bother me the most are the irrigation and the trellis. Maybe it's thematic. I don't really know much about winemaking. But like the larger cellar is like something you pretty much have to do. So you're going to have to do that at some point. The windmill, cottage, and tasting room, those are, and yoke to a certain degree, are all like bonusy things that just help you, so they're optional. You kind of only go for one. But those are probably my biggest complaint about the game, is that you could just have a really bad luck of the draw where, you know, you with your mom. Well, like what if all the wine cards you drew, and it happened. I drew like I need this needs trellis, this needs irrigation, and this one needs both. I was like, great. Like, and also, if you start off with the mamas and papas and you started off with something built, like let's say I started with the tasting room built, right, and I had less money, it's a perfect storm, and it's not going to happen all the time, but there are going to be some times when you can sit down and just by the luck of the draw, you're starting off kind of behind everybody.
You know, or you start off ahead. Like the first game we played, I think I started with my trellis built. So my first turn, I'm like, I'm going to plant this really great vine. And so I was getting a lot of grapes every turn that the rest of the people had to kind of catch up to. And I'm sure, like knowing Jamie, it's probably balanced in that if you know how to play to the strengths of what you have, you can make it work. But I do think that the biggest luck comes from what vines you have versus what mamas and papas you end up with.
And also just the blues and the visitors you draw. Those are, there's a lot of RNG in this for being such a tight Jamie worker placement game.
So the visitors definitely can be kind of situational, or like they can actually kind of help turn the tide for you. Like there are some of them where you'll get them, it's like, oh, this will allow you to plant a vine for free, where you don't have to go do this action. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to go up here and play 2 yellow cards, and one of them is to plant vines, and this one is going to give me coins, or I'm going to do something that'll give me wine. Like there's a bunch of just a variety of things in there that help you kind of build up other things that have been lacking because of other actions you can't take.
There are some like kingmaker visitors though.
Mhm.
Like we were playing one game where I played a yellow visitor that let me plant a vine for free even if I didn't have space in that field. And so I think my 6th field already had like a 3 white and a 3 red in it, and I was able to plant a 4 red on top of that. So every time I harvested that one field, I got 7 red and 3 whites, and I got that fairly early on in the game. And so I was always just flush with grapes the whole time. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't really need to worry about grapes at all anymore. I'm just going to worry about upgrading my cellars and just harvesting those as much as I can. And different things like that. Like there's just, the visitors can get crazy. And so that's probably kind of the minor complaint that I have with it is that you can get, like, if people double down on visitor cards, it can win the game for them. Or you could just get a bunch of stuff that you're like, this does not help me at all. I don't want this.
Yeah, like even the card you were just talking about being like, you said, oh, this will make planting more efficient, right? And it is important to tell people when they're sitting down, hey, the yellows generally help with this half and the blues generally help with that half. Not as a rule, but, you know, it kind of works that way. Like, okay, I'm going to come here, I'm going to play this yellow and this yellow. This one helps me with planting, so it's, you know, saving me in action. Like, all that's good stuff, but if you get that later in the game, you know, I mean, it's just... And you should know that, like, moving forward, if you already have your sort of engine, like, look, I have all the vines planted that I need, now I just need to harvest and, you know, make them and freaking fill some orders, hurry up and do that. Then, yeah, probably stop drawing as many yellows, but, like, it's still something that it's kind of out of your control, and you could just kind of get screwed by the game.
So the Visit from the Rhine Valley expansion actually fixes that by giving you options on those cards where it's like, okay, I can do this or this, and you don't feel as stuck with the card. You're not like, okay, well, I drew this card that doesn't help me. Usually one of those 2 options, or sometimes there's 3 options, really help you, especially because it just replaces this deck and gives you a whole new game, basically.
Yeah, the Visit from the Rhine Valley expansion. We'll have another video where we talk about it, you know, kind of in more detail, but basically what Jamie said, it was kind of his goal, is that a lot of these decks within the visits, the yellow and the blue cards, they tend to have a lot of little point gains, like do this to gain a point, do this to gain 2 points. And he said in order to pull away from that, he wanted the Visit from the Rhine Valley to be more about your engine. So yeah, the cards there are a lot more cards that have more options on them. Some of the cards actually are the same, so a few. But what they do is they allow you to just ramp up on your engine a lot more. Like, it also, they really do kind of fix, like, the money problem. A lot more of those cards can allow you to get money and have a bit more swinginess, not necessarily in points, but in, like, just gaining your resources. So, you know, it's just a different way of playing.
So they could have, you know, instead of just using these lame little log things, they could have made something better, like...
That's the only component that isn't, like, shaped as something fancy.
Yeah.
You had to pick.
I had to find my one complaint, and that's it. That could have been something else instead of just a cylinder.
That's true. I'll tack that on to my complaint. But another positive is the production quality is
Top
fantastic,
notch. Yeah.
phenomenal, just like you'd expect from Stonemaier. And one of my buddies even said, I never really realized this, but the little wine tokens, when you put it on there, it kind of has like a magnifying effect. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that is really cool. It kind of looks like you're looking at it through a glass. It is glass, but you know what I mean?
Another really interesting thing about the worker placement, we kind of briefly touched on it earlier, because there's 2 seasons in the base game. You have the planting time and the harvesting time. You don't have a recall of your workers between those. Mm-hmm. So, like, let's say you're starting with 5 workers. So you choose how many you want to spend in each season. Not like before the game, but as you're playing. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you really want to go super heavy on the harvesting and gaining your points and everything down here, you can play like 1 or 2 workers here, and then go here, and everyone's like, how do you have so many workers? How do you go to all the spots? And you're like,
I passed early in the first season.
But you're giving up a lot of stuff over here, which is where you gain a lot of your money and plant vines and stuff like that.
Yeah. Knowing when to pass in the first season is a big deal.
Talking about big deals, what about this big guy? We didn't even talk about him.
Didn't talk about him.
He can go anywhere, even if the spaces are full, which is like, that's a cool additional thing. Like, I don't know what it had, like, how it fits in with, like, wine culture and stuff. Like, it's like
they're normally just a giant.
It's just a giant
If
guy.
we're all busy here and then a really fat guy walks up, we're all like, all right, you
You can
go
do this
for
too.
it, Tom. Just have that.
But it is just a cool mechanism. It's like, okay, everybody's taken all 3 of the spots or the 2 spots, depending on player count. I'm like, I really need to go here and plant. I'm going to go and plant. I'm still going to place my guy there.
But you only have 1, so you can't do it.
You can't push
You
your
can't
weight
do it.
around all the entire time.
Yeah, you can't even do it in both. You have to decide. You have to be like, well, am I going to pass in this season and save my big guy? And you can still use him as a regular worker, which always feels like useless. And was like, I guess I'll use my big worker to get this. I mean, and then I'm like, but then nobody blocked me, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And that does, one of the frustrations I have, especially late game, is that especially if you've unlocked all your workers and then like you don't always have a lot to do. Because at the end of the game, like, okay, I don't really need to worry about building on my engine or anything. It's just, how can I get these points? Mm-hmm. And I had games where like I'd get to the end and I'm like, there's really nowhere for me to go. Like anything that's going to benefit me is already blocked off. I've already used my big guy. So I'm just going to use these to get coins that aren't really going to be beneficial. Like I had some games where I was just like, I don't care.
One other complaint, I guess I would say, is this box is just way too small. Come on, Stegmeyer, where's our legendary box for Viticulture? You've already got one for Scythe now, and there's Tuscany, the Visit from the Rhine Valley, and the More Visitors expansion. So, come on, we really need a big box for this by now.
Does it not all fit in the box once you throw the insert away?
That's irrelevant to the fact that we need a bigger box.
Overall, I think that Viticulture is an amazing worker placement game. Like I said earlier, I think it's one of my favorite. It's such a tight game. There's so many interesting choices you have to make. You know, do I use all my workers in the beginning of the season or at the end of the season? You know, do I buy a bunch of workers real quick? You know, okay, do I spend my money on upgrading this building or that building? There's just a lot of decisions you have to make that ultimately you kind of need to do all of those things, but it's just kind of finding the pattern which works for you and, you know, fulfilling enough orders and things and gaining all those points to ultimately win the game, you know. And I like that there's like a cap at, 20 points is when somebody hits that soft cap, like it keeps going, but that's the end of that triggers the end of the game, and everybody's like, okay, I have 20. Oh yeah, well I'm going to score 21 points, and you're like, oh no, can I get any more points? Like it's a fun little thing at the end where you're like just vying like for like 1 or 2 points.
Panicking is fun for you. I'm going to agree with Aaron. It's up there in my favorite worker placement games, up with like Lords of Waterdeep and Champions of Midgard. It is, in my opinion, hands down Jamie Stegmeyer's best game. The best game that Stonemeyer Games puts out. Scythe is really good. I like Euphoria a lot. But ultimately, I'd probably rather play Viticulture over Scythe. Now, granted, while it's still a pretty dense game, it's shorter than Scythe, and, it's really different. It's hard to compare. Just comparing because they're both Jamie Stegmeyer games, but I do think that I have more fun playing this than I do. There's less confrontation. It's easier to teach than Scythe. I think that and now granted, I still haven't even played the Tuscany version, which I know has a lot of different modules in it. A lot of people say that blows it out of the water and that, they don't even play the base game a lot of the times now that they have Tuscany. So, man, this is going to, if I play with Tuscany, it's going to crush Scythe. Scythe who?
Absolutely. I had so much fun playing Viticulture, and the last complaint I'm going to have is how hard it is to find a copy of this game, because I definitely want to add it to my collection. I need it on my shelf. I can't find it anywhere, so if you want to send me one, just message me. I'll give you Tom's address. You can send it to him, and then he'll give it to me. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like we may have, to me, it felt like we kind of harped on this game a lot, but I think it's only because we liked it so much that we were really pulling out all the bad things to make sure that we got those out so we could really enjoy it. And maybe in post it'll come out that we
never said a bad thing.
I don't know yet. But I absolutely love Viticulture. The theme grew on me of it really was more about farming than about wine, which I guess is how you make wine. But regardless, I don't think you should have any hesitations if you like any kind of Euro-y worker placement game. It's not super heavy Euro. It's not super light either, but I don't think it's anything that you should shy away from. I think that we could teach this to Tom's mom.
Oh,
It
that's
would take a little
bold
bit,
statement.
but I think we could do it.
You say it'd take all day.
It would take a bit, but
it would take a bit.
But I think that it's a game that if anyone who's open and receptive to it, I think they could play it, which is why I definitely think that you should add it to your collection. I doubt we're going to find a purchase link, but if we do, we'll put one in the description box down below.
And hey, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, share it, do all that kind of stuff. And when you're doing all that stuff, you will never
Be bored.
Yeah, there definitely is. We are Never Bored Gaming, and we are talking about Viticulture by Stonemeyer Stegmeyer Games.
Yes, we
I
are.
was stuck on the steg. I was
Yeah.
like,
Don't worry, guys. I'm not shaving it again.